You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your hosts, Keith Wheeler.
And Nuria Corby.
And what are we talking about today, Nuria?
Oh, my favorite subject today, A+ content. So I hope we've got a lot to say about that.
Yeah, I definitely have thoughts on A+ content.
Yeah.
It seems like A+ content is more necessary now than ever before, because from my experience, it seems like most paperback books on Amazon aren't showing the look inside feature anymore like they used to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think apart from that, I think that A+ content just gives you so many more opportunities to showcase your book than the look inside feature. I mean, in actual fact, I think the look inside feature isn't great for people who make low content books, because you're kind of giving away your inside of the book. And I've had some of my books copied, and I know they've taken it from the look inside feature, because they even have the bit where it says copyright, the little copyright notice that Amazon puts on it shows up in their interior. So I know they've taken it literally from, and if your pages are more or less the same, then of course they only need a few pages of your look inside to be able to copy your book. So it's not always an advantage to have the look inside. So A+ content is, to me, so much better, because you can control what you're showing your buyer. Do you find that? Or
I do, and for those people who have no clue what we're talking about when we say A+ content, we could actually, for those people watching it on YouTube, we can actually put on screen. But basically, it's when you go onto a product page on Amazon, especially if you're looking at books, you may see a section that says from the publisher, and it's just images and other types of information. Sometimes it's a comparison chart where it just gives you more insight into that particular book. And so that's what we mean by A+ content, for those people who have no clue what we're talking about.
Yeah. So the good thing about it is you can add images. So when you think about your page, your book sales page, normally you just have the cover. Sometimes you've got the back cover. You used to have the look inside. And then you just have the description and the price and the buy it now button. But the A+ content underneath just lets you add more images. It lets you add more text. So you can really make it into almost like a mini website or a mini landing page for your book. And I like to show pictures of somebody using my books. So somebody holding your book. If it's a children's book, I like to get pictures of children holding the book and reading them and enjoying the book. It kind of works like a shop window. Like if you go to a store and you look in their windows and they display their products, we can do that with the A+ content on our book page. So you can also add text and say, what your book is about. But I find people are very visual, and they kind of react better to images than text. Most people don't even read the description, I find. So I think the images are the most important part for me, I think, in my A+ content. How do you do your A+ content, Keith? Do you add images like that?
I do. And I think you really hit the nail on the head, because, people are visual and they purchase based on emotion typically. And so if they can see themselves holding that book, and again, I do children's books, but I also do no content, low content book, puzzle books and things like that. And really it doesn't matter, because they're seeing the cover, or they're seeing, maybe the book is open and you'll see a little bit of that. But I think, again, getting to what you were saying compared to the look inside features, you have complete control over what these images are. And it's not just your book. You know what I mean? That you're able to put some add some flair to it, whether it's, the fonts that you use, if you're just writing, and you have items up, and you're allowed a certain number of modules when you do the A+ content, but you can add, the font size, the font type that you want. You can add the images that you want. And so again, you have complete control over that. You don't have control over the sizes, but you have control over, what images actually get shown there. And again, it's just one more way to make a lasting impression on your potential buyer. Even if they don't buy it then, they're looking at a competitor. If their competitor doesn't have the A+ content, your book, even though the book may be exactly the same, it's going to look that much better because it's going to be that much more memorable.
Absolutely. And I think it's just, when you're creating a book, I know, and I don't always do A+ content for all of my books, because
Right.
by now I've got quite a number of books, and it takes time to make A+ content. And I definitely add it to all the books that I create from now on. But I've still got books that I published months ago where I haven't added the A+ content. And I always tend to make sure that I add it, especially to the books that are selling, or to the books that I think are going to sell, because like you said, if somebody looks at my book and then they look at a competitor's book and none of them have got A+ content, it could go to either one. But if one of them has got A+ content, I bet you they go with the book that has the A+ content, because it just looks so much more professional. It looks like they're giving, you're giving them more information where they can base their buying decision on. So it's absolutely, and like I said, I mean, it does take time to make A+ content. And if you haven't made it before, you have to look up how to make it first. And sometimes we just postpone things like that, and we just carry on with the tasks that we know inside out and that we can do as quickly as possible. So I would say, A+ content, try and really add it if you can to any of your new books, or the books that you think are worth having A+ content for, because it does create more sales. And I do find that, because I've noticed the difference from when I didn't have the A+ content to now where I do have A+ content. And especially if you run ads, you want your ads you want the people that click on your ads to land on a page that really looks professional, and really looks good and gives them lots of information. You don't want to pay for ads, people click on your book and there's no information really, and they go into the next one.
Yeah, it just looks like any other one.
Yeah, it saves you ads money, I think.
Yeah, it does. Well, and the other thing is getting back to it looks more professional. I think one thing that adds to it is remember that when you put up A+ content on the page, it doesn't list it as A+ content. It says from the publisher, which just those words from the publisher makes your book sound more professional. Absolutely. And so just that in and of itself, just that term that you didn't even put up there is a way to really make your book stand out over the competition. And I absolutely agree, when you're running ads, if you run ads to a book without A+ content, and then later on the same book but with A+ content, I bet you will see better success, better conversion on the ones that when it has A+ content, because again, it's giving more information. People want to, they want to know as much as possible. And so if it's just another page, just like any other ad they clicked on, it's, you've got a chance for sales. Whereas if you have something that's giving them images, so it's, it's enticing them that way, it's giving them information. One thing that I like to do for my books that are in a series, both written books as well as like my puzzle books, is there's a comparison chart, and you can list what they have in common, what are different. And the great thing is that each of the books that you put in that comparison chart is clickable. So they can click. So even if they clicked on your ad to go to, let's say Puzzle Book Volume 1, and then they see that Volume 3 actually has a lot of puzzle types that they like, they can click on it from that exact page and take you there. So you're actually able to promote more of your books within, one page. I mean, as opposed to even in the back of your book, you might list them and have hyperlinks to them, but this is literally like, it's all part of the chart. And so that's just one of the many ways that you can really use it to help cross promote your books.
I think the comparison module is one of the most important modules within A+ content. And just to quickly explain, if anybody hasn't looked at A+ content, you'll find it on your bookshelf. If you go to marketing, I think it's marketing, and then you scroll down and it says create A+ content. I think that's where you find it. Once you are on the A+ content site, you will see different modules, they call them. And basically, they are the parts that build your page, your book sales page. So you've got control over how it will look as well, because they've got different sizes. So you can create like a banner, or you can create a bigger image where you can put more information in. It lets you have modules where you have 3 images or 4 images, something like that. And the best one is obviously the comparison module, because it makes your images clickable, and you can have your other books, like you said, and then people click, they see one book and then they can click on the other book and takes them straight to that page. And that is one of the modules that has really helped my book sales, because one of my brands, I put the comparison module and fill it up with my other books. And I think it lets you, I can't remember if it's 5 or 6 that it lets you have in one row. But then if you have more than that, you can add another comparison module and have another 5 or 6 books under that. So you can increase that number. I know there's a limit on how many modules you can have overall. I can't remember exactly how that works, but I've never had I've never had not enough modules for my A+ content. And some people are getting confused as to how to create them. You can create your pictures or your images for your modules on Canva, for example, or on PowerPoint, or I think you use BookBrush, Keith.
Yeah, I use BookBrush. BookBrush is they have a lot of those images to where you can just drop your book cover image and it'll show like someone's holding it or someone's at the beach reading it or whatever. And so I find those images fun to add into the A+ content.
Yeah. And I imagine that BookBrush gives you the measurements already for each module.
Right. Correct.
So what you can also do is when you click on the module, it will show you the size that you need. I think one of them is 600 by 600. I can't remember now offhand, but all you would then have to do is if you're doing it in Canva or in PowerPoint, you will enter that size to create your image. And that is one way to create your A+ content, by creating different modules, and then you just add them on Amazon. And it's fairly easy to do, but like everything, it's a bit of a learning curve. You have to find out how to do it. But once you know, it's not that difficult. And then you can add text and all sorts of other things. I don't know if adding text, I think this would be interesting to find out whether it helps with SEO on your page. Do you know anything about that?
I don't. If I remember correctly, though, I think with A+ content, you can add like alternate text, like to like for the label, and that gets picked up by SEO. So the image or whatever that you use isn't really going to, but the alternate text that you put in there can be.
Yeah, that's what I thought it might do, because you could have text inside the image and create an image with text, but of course that way it doesn't get picked up by search engines. But if you have it on the actual text box that Amazon provide, then it might. I don't know, but my feeling is that it might help.
I would imagine it would.
Yeah. And I think the other question I see quite a lot, people ask me when they make their A+ content and they upload it onto Amazon, I've heard a lot that they said their images look a bit blurry, and I've never had that problem. So I don't know what that could be. Do you have any insight on that?
My initial thought would be that they're probably stretching their images. So like if they've got the 600 by 600, area to work with, maybe the image that they got is 240 by 240. And so they're stretching it. So obviously if you stretch it, it's going to be pixelated. And so that would be my guess why it would look blurry. Other than that, I'm not really sure. I will say that there are a lot of the modules that are in there do share shapes, dimension sizes. So it's not like you have to recreate the same thing a bunch of times. That said, I do strongly suggest that you do different sizes, because if maybe have a 600 by 600 version and a 150 by 150, and I only say that one because I know that's one of the other measurements. But visually it's going to look more engaging to the viewer if there's different shapes and different sizes. It just looks better, as opposed to if everything is exactly the same size, it's going to look kind of boring. At least for me it would. So but yeah, like I actually have a folder in my books folder for each book of my A+ images. And if I find that after a while these images aren't looking the way I want, I'll switch things out, change it up a little bit. I definitely like to change them up slightly from book to book in a series. I keep some elements exactly the same because I want it to look cohesive. But then I definitely will change some other things up so it does look unique.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made a good point there. I think, be on brand with your A+ content. Keep it cohesive with your brand colors, and don't put too many different things in it. Make it look quite clear and on brand. Really, that's the only way I can describe it. So whatever you could even have a logo, I guess. Choose the colors of that logo to make it all look uniform, and it's visual. It is a visual thing for people, so
right.
How it looks is really important, and you want it to look professional, so the fonts are important. And I mean, there's a lot that can go into A+ content. It's not that easy when you think about it, but I think that once you've got one that looks pretty good, you can kind of apply that to most of your books. If you've got a layout that works for you, you can then use that for your other books. I think I just use one particular layout for all of them. I think I've got one banner, then I've got like a bigger one, and then I've got all the comparison modules. So it just you have to play about with it a little bit. And the other thing is you have to do your A+ content for each marketplace. So if you have, and the reason I think that it makes sense, because if you have a book that is selling on Amazon.com and they're speaking English, but then you have another one that's selling on Amazon ES and they're speaking Spanish, or on Amazon DE and it's the German market, you should translate the A+ content as well as the book and the information that goes with your book. So I think that's why they've made it so that it doesn't just translate to all of the marketplaces. But the good thing is with the UK and the US, when it's an English-speaking territory, you don't have to recreate the whole thing, although sometimes you do, sometimes it doesn't work. But normally there's a little, I do mine on the .com first, and then when I switch to the UK market, there's a little box that you tick, and I think it says something like, oh, I've forgotten what it says now. Do you remember what it says? But it's something to do with, it's something to do with recreating the other content or something. You'll see the little box anyway. It'll be quite clear when you see it. Once you tick that, it then gets the content from the .com and puts it on the UK market. So you don't always have to recreate the whole thing from scratch. When it works, you can do it that way. But I have found that sometimes it doesn't work, so then you do have to do it. And it's a pain because Yeah, it can be a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing to keep in mind, because obviously, just like with anything, the practice is going to make it better. But as we've talked numerous times on this channel, is done is better than perfect. You know, your first ones that you do, they don't have to be perfect. You know, I would say, with very little exception, any A+ content is better than no A+ content.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, unless it's just like off the wall, intentionally ugly, I think that's the only way that you can actually deter people away. But it'd still make it memorable. But other than that, I think, you know, just trying it. You don't have to try and, you know, the first time and do 5 modules, because the other thing is, I think from my experience, 3 has been kind of like the sweet spot for me. 3 different modules, because obviously you don't want to make them keep having to scroll either. But you want enough to make it enticing and make it interesting.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that I should mention is check what it would look like on your mobile phone, because I've made that mistake, especially the comparison module. You've got a part of it, you can put your book image into it so that people see your book. And if you make it as wide as the module and then you go on your mobile, it looks like they're all fused together, which isn't a good look. So I always leave a little bit of a margin now. But just check if you're doing your A+ content. I think there's a way on Amazon itself where you
should be a box to see it on mobile.
Exactly. So just check that it looks good on any device, which I sometimes forget to do. And then when it goes live, you think, but you can change it. Even
you can
if
change it, right?
Yeah, you go live, and if it doesn't look right, you can just change it again. We've all been there, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, you can always, and like I said, even if it does look right, if you if after, you know, 3 months or so, you want to change it up, changing it, you know, a module or two. Again, I wouldn't, I never change too many things at once, just because, you know, the whole scientific, you know, mindset of mine is, you know, if you change too many things, you don't know what helped it, what hurt it, so you just change one thing at a time.
I agree. I'm the same. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not going to waste my time on something. Yeah, I'm not going to waste my time on something that, you know, if I already have A+ content up there and it's not, you know, there's nothing questionable about it, I'll just leave it up there and let it do its thing. But if I see, you know, sometimes maybe after 6 months or even a year, I'll see that sales are starting to go down. One of the first things I do, besides run ads to it, even before I run ads, is I'll look at the A+ content and say, okay, can I tweak some of these images? Can I, you know, add an extra module in there, you know, switch one out? And then after I decide on that, then I'll run, you know, ads to it.
Definitely. I think, you know, you could even change your A+ images going with the season. I mean, you could make it Christmassy looking or Halloween type looking. But because of that, you know, don't fix it if it's not broken. I shy away from changing things like that, because I think, what if I if I do something to it and then it, you know, and then it doesn't work. So I haven't done that yet. I can't say that I've tried it. Or if you forget to change it.
Summertime comes around and there's a snowman on it. It's like, what?
Exactly, you forget. Yeah. That would be me. Definitely. Yeah. So I haven't tried that, but theoretically you could do that. And I think the other thing we should say is, where would we get images from with people holding our books and things like that? I find those images in Placeit. It's called a website called Placeit, and it's not free, but they do have a lot of free images as well. So you could, if ideally, you could find the kind of images that you're looking for in the sizes of your books, because you also have to be careful. If your book is a paperback, you can't have a mock-up of a hardback, or you can't have you know, if it's a 6x9, you can't have a really big book, you know, someone holding an 8.5x11 or something like that. So you have to make sure that your mock-ups are realistic and they look like the book that you have produced, because I see that quite a lot, people making mock-ups of their books and they look like hardcover and they're not really hardcover.
My personal favorite is when I look at one and it's they do A+ content for like a puzzle book or a journal or something like that, and they've got it on the person's phone. I'm like, no, there's not an ebook version of it. There's not a digital version. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Oh wow, I
Yeah,
haven't seen that one.
yeah. So yeah, and I will say, just for those people who are tuning in that do low content, no content books, I will say that A+ content is it will make your books stand out even more, because most people aren't taking that extra time, because they're just knocking out, no content, low content books. They're not taking the extra time to create A+ content. And so if you do, that will make your book stand out even more. Conversely, if you're creating children's books and you don't have A+ content, you're actually, from what I've seen, in the minority. And really you're almost starting out, with a disadvantage, because most especially now that KDP, the Amazon Look Inside feature doesn't seem to be working with print books, is even more important. And with picture books, you've got all the illustrations, everything that we were talking about that really can entice people and bring them into your book and into your world right there. And yes, it takes time to create the A+ content, but the good thing is you create it once and you're done. It's, it still goes back to the whole mindset that everybody, wants, where, it's just kind of set it and forget it. Once you create it one time and you put it up there, it's there.
Yeah. And I think especially where low content books are concerned, I think we've gone further now than we were a few years back, because I think that a lot of people still look at people like us on YouTube that talk about low content books, and it's like you make a notebook, put it on Amazon, that's it, and the sales will come in. And that's not the case. That really isn't the case. It's very hard now to get a good income from low content books, but it is possible. It's just that you have to work harder at it. You have to make that A+ content, make better covers, think outside the box, make more unique books than they are already on Amazon. And if you don't do that, then it's going to be really, really hard. And most people don't even know about A+ content. I get a lot of people asking, well, if I talk about A+ content, they're saying, what is A+ content? So it shows me that, they haven't found out about it yet. So it's really important, especially for low content books, like you said. I mean, it's so much better because there's more competition as well. And the people that don't have it, they're less likely to get the sales than the people that do have it, just because it looks more professional. And now when I make a book, I actually haven't finished the process of making that book until I've put my A+ content on Amazon as well. That's part of my creating my book now. I wouldn't even consider not having A+ content from now on. So I think things have changed when it comes to making low content books. And of course, for fiction and non-fiction, it's the same thing. You should have A+ content, because it's, you're competing with more people. I think authors that produce non-fiction and fiction, like you said, they have A+ content now. So it's really important to add that. Yeah,
I agree. And I'll be honest, when I'm looking at possibly jumping into a new niche, one of the things I look at, and even in some cases with keyword research, when I look at the competitors and I look, I look and see how competitive is. I look to see what their BSRs are, and we can do a whole another episode on that. But what I'll do is I'll look and see if they have A+ content, because even if they have more reviews than me, obviously starting out, and they've got a great BSR, if they don't have A+ content, that's something I can do right off the bat to make my book look better. And so that's something that, like I said, right from the beginning, can really tie in and like we were talking about with SEO, can make your book even more relevant to whatever that keyword is or to that niche. And so that's something I'll do before I even, like I said, when I'm looking at a new niche, and I'll say, okay, it's a little bit competitive, but I can do this, and none of the other books in this niche have A+ content, or most of them don't. And then again, that's a way to just right from the beginning start out with a step ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, definitely. I just think it's essential now. I don't think that the days where you made a notebook and it was happy 50th birthday or happy 18th birthday or whatever. Do you remember those books
Oh,
that
I
used to
do.
come up?
They're
Yeah.
all black cover with just white text. And
Yeah. Imagine if they had to have A+ content for all of their books, they wouldn't bother. And I think
no,
in a way that makes the better books rise to the top. And all those books, they are now in Amazon's graveyard, I think. So
yeah,
in a way, it's a good thing. It's good that, you know, there's more quality now to books, I think, because the people that create A+ content are also creating better books, because that's the type of people they are. They put more effort into listing their books and making their books. That's
I
the
agree.
way I think about it.
Yeah. Well, and one of the questions I get all the time is, you know, I'm creating books, whatever type of book it is. And you know, I don't have the budget for running ads, and I'm not seeing sales. You know, how can I compete? How can I compete? A+ content is my first answer.
Yeah.
Do you have A+ content? No. Add it in, because that's
Mm.
how you can compete without running ads and still make your book look better.
Yeah.
Still make it look, again, because like I said, it says from the publisher, it's going to make your book sound more professional. And you know, especially if they happen to get into a niche that is more competitive, or maybe they were doing really well for a while, and then, you know, somebody did a video about it, and so now they're getting all this competition. If you don't have A+ content, that's how you can make yours better, because like you said, these people that are just, you know, putting up hot garbage, they're just not, you know, trying to work on the volume, you know, throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks kind of thing. They're not going to take that time to create A+ content. And so that's how that's one of that, and ads are pretty much the only way you're going to be able to compete with someone just knocking out, you know, hundreds of books all at the same time, you know, is make yours better. And again, yes, it's time consuming. You can actually find people. We were talking about this before we went live, but you can find people on places like Fiverr that'll do it. I find them to be a bit pricey. I mean, I've found them usually between $35 and $75, depending on how many modules you want done. But if you have more money than you have spare time, then yeah, try it. I haven't tried any of them, so I can't attest to any specific buyer or seller. But that said, I'm also the first person to tell people, when you do something for the first time, do it yourself. Know the process, because the only way to know if the money you're spending is money well spent is to know the process and know how long it would take you to do it. You know, what goes into it. That's also will allow you to know if what they're doing is looks good, is the right size, you know, whatever. You know, I mean, you could get someone, you know, if you've done it yourself and you know that they're like 150 by 150 or 300 by 300, and then they give you something that's like 420 by 420. If you've never done it yourself, you might not know that's not a thing. You know, that's not one of the modules that are going to look right, that are going to fit. So you're going to have to modify it yourself anyway. So I would say take the time to do at least one, you know, do it one time yourself before you consider hiring out.
Absolutely. That is a really good point. And I also find that actually I quite enjoy it now, because I'm kind of looking at my book and I'm thinking of ways to promote it, basically.
Right.
You know, I'm thinking, how can this book look good? You know, would it look good if a certain person holds it and is reading it? Will it look better if they're smiling? Will it look better if they're looking really interesting or interested in the book? And you kind of think more about who would use your book and who, you know, how they would use it. And I think all of that helps you to create better books in the long term. So in a way, even though it's time consuming, I find that it's actually a really worthwhile thing to do in many ways, not just because you're creating A+ content and all the benefits that brings with it, but the benefits and the lessons you learn from creating that A+ content. So I think, for me, it's just I wouldn't even think of running ads on a book if I haven't created my A+ content for it. So that's how important it is to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it just, like you said, it makes your conversion rate better.
Mm-hmm.
And so why would you want to run ads to something that you haven't maximized your chances of profit yet? It's like I wouldn't run ads to a book that has a questionable cover, and so, or a price that doesn't make sense. Little things like that all add up when it comes to running ads. But yeah, A+ content, I absolutely agree. That's one of the final things before I run an ad to something. It's got to have A+ content now.
Absolutely. So, I mean, both of us, we really encourage anyone to create that A+ content, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to increase your book sales. So, you have to do it.
And we'll include links to, I think you said it was Place It.
Yeah.
And as well as BookBrush, if you guys want to check that out. They're not affiliate links, but if you want to check them out, we'll include those in the show notes.
Definitely.
Well, this has been another great Mastermind, Nuria. Once again, a huge thank you to all our listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's Mastermind, please consider following or subscribing, and let us know what you thought by leaving us a review. Until next week, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Colby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.